Ingrid Bergman, the Swedish actress whose face and talent captured the hearts of millions, has long been considered the ultimate symbol of beauty, grace, and elegance in Hollywood. She was admired not just for her flawless appearance, but also for her intelligence, professionalism, and ability to breathe life into every character she portrayed. From her earliest days in Sweden to her rise in Hollywood, Bergman became the very definition of cinematic perfection. Yet, behind those clear blue eyes lay secrets that the world never knew. Decades after her death, a private letter surfaced, revealing intimate details of a love that challenged her morals, reshaped her personal life, and shook the very image that Hollywood had of her. The letter recounted a romance so intense, so forbidden, that it could have destroyed her reputation if it had been revealed during her lifetime. It spoke of a man, the famous leading man Gregory Peck, whose charm, presence, and subtle gestures ignited a spark in Bergman that she could not ignore. Their connection went far beyond the cameras, scripts, and movie sets, and it changed the course of her life in ways few could imagine that in the mid-1940s. Hollywood was booming, recovering from the aftermath of World War II and experiencing a new wave of creativity, glamour, and fame. Ingrid Bergman, fresh off her Academy Award win for Gaslight, was already a celebrated figure, admired by critics and audiences alike. She was considered a queen of the screen, a woman who seemed untouchable, perfect, and entirely dedicated to her craft. It was during this peak of her career that she received an unusual invitation, one that would open the door to a secret chapter in her life. Alfred Hitchcock, the genius director renowned for his psychological thrillers, wanted Bergman to star in Spellbound, a film exploring the depths of the human mind and introducing cinematic audiences to the concept of Freudian psychoanalysis. The project was groundbreaking and daring, and Bergman initially rejected it. She found the story implausible, unable to believe that a romance could blossom simply from dreams and an amnesiac man. While producer David O. Selznick was furious at her refusal, Hitchcock remained silent. When he eventually met her personally, he did not beg or argue. Instead, he gave her a look sharp and compelling, and simply said that she did not have to believe the story. She only needed to make the audience believe the emotions in her eyes. This quiet insistence set the stage for something far more powerful than any script or direction. It set the stage for a romance that neither Bergman nor Hollywood could have anticipated. The moment Ingrid Bergman met Gregory Peck, everything changed. She had expected a simple, brief meeting to fulfill her obligation to Selznick, intending to politely decline the role after seeing the new co-star. But the instant Peck walked into the room, Bergman's world shifted. His tall, strong figure, steady gray-blue eyes, and warm, sincere smile captivated her completely. Words were unnecessary. Even when they read lines from the script, the dialogue seemed to carry a real-life truth. Every glance, every brief touch, every accidental brush of the hand sent a shiver through Bergman, awakening emotions she had carefully kept hidden. Peck's presence stirred something she had not felt in years, a combination of excitement, curiosity, and undeniable attraction. The director, Alfred Hitchcock, noticed this energy immediately. Scenes that required closeness were electric, charged with a tension that went far beyond the script. When Peck held Bergman's hand during a crucial scene, it was no longer acting. The moment became a real encounter between two souls, a silent recognition of something that could not be named aloud, but could not be denied either. That day, Bergman returned home with her mind racing, feeling both guilty and alive, caught between the stability of her family and the irresistible pull of this newfound love. As filming continued, the tension and attraction between Bergman and Peck grew, both on and off the set. Each time their hands touched, their eyes met, or their bodies accidentally brushed, Bergman's heart raced, and her inner conflict deepened. She was married to Dr. Peter Lindstrom, a Swedish neurosurgeon, and mother to their daughter Pia. Outwardly, the family appeared perfect, a model of balance and stability. Behind the scenes, however, the marriage had grown distant. Peter's pragmatic, logical nature clashed with Bergman's increasingly passionate immersion in her career. She tried to remind herself daily that her life on set was simply work, that the intimacy required by the camera was only professional. But Peck's presence made the boundary blur. One afternoon, in a scene at the sanitarium, Bergman's character collapsed into Peck's arms. His touch, warm and strong, made her tremble. Hitchcock encouraged her to let the emotion flow naturally, and she did, discovering a depth of feeling she could neither predict nor resist. By the end of the day, the line between fiction and reality had begun to dissolve. What started as professional necessity became a secret. Forbidden Love, as Ingrid Bergman's connection with Gregory Peck deepened. Their interactions moved beyond the confines of the movie set. While the cameras captured scripted scenes, real emotions surged beneath the surface. Their encounters, though brief and often hidden, became the heartbeat of a forbidden romance that neither could ignore. Peck was careful, thoughtful, and aware of the danger of their attraction. He sent Bergman small notes, simple messages written on slips of paper, often just a few words, but each carrying intense meaning. One such note read only, Hotel Bel Air, 110. The message was brief, yet was a silent invitation, a doorway into a secret world where Bergman could surrender to feelings she had long suppressed. The careful choreography of their meetings, always hidden, always fleeting, added to the tension. Each step outside the public, I felt both thrilling and terrifying. Bergman was acutely aware of her responsibilities as a wife and mother, yet her desire for Peck, the intensity of their connection, and the emotional honesty he offered pulled her toward choices she never imagined she would make. The mind can resist many things, but the heart is far less obedient, and Bergman's heart had quietly chosen a path fraught with both danger and ecstasy. The clandestine meetings of the Bear Hotel became their sanctuary. Behind closed doors, the world disappeared. The pressures of Hollywood, the expectations of fans, and even the moral obligations that weighed heavily on Bergman's conscience. In those dimly lit rooms, it was just Ingrid and Gregory, two individuals stripped of public personas, able to express emotions that would have been forbidden elsewhere. Bergman's notes reveal the inner turmoil she experienced during these encounters. She described a sense of being torn in two, a woman bound by duty, respect, and love for her family, and a woman awakened to a passion that made her feel truly alive. Each touch, glance, and word from Peck was electrifying. Every time their hands met, every time their eyes held, a mixture of exhilaration and guilt washed over Bergman. It was a balancing act, a careful negotiation between desire and morality. Despite the immense temptation, Bergman did not surrender fully. She was painfully aware that to do so would irreversibly alter her life, destroy her marriage, and potentially ruin her carefully built reputation. Yet, paradoxically, it was this very restraint that deepened the intensity of their affair, making every stolen moment more precious and every glance more loaded with meaning. Hollywood itself, with its endless eyes and insatiable appetite for scandal, seemed to hover invisibly over Bergman's shoulder. The couple's secrecy was not only a matter of morality, but also one of survival. One day, Bergman returned home after filming to discover a large packet of mail tied with a red string on her table. Her hands trembled as she untied it, revealing dozens of photographs capturing her and Gregory Peck in what they had assumed were private moments. Cafes, cars parked under faint streetlights, the hotel corridor. They thought these encounters were unseen, yet someone had watched them, documenting their intimacy. A note accompanying the photographs simply stated, "Hollywood always has eyes." Fear gripped Bergman's heart. Who had taken these photos? What did they want? Was her private world about to be exposed to the public? The threat, though silent, loomed heavily, creating an almost unbearable tension. She checked the phone, the mailbox, and even tabloids obsessively for the next few days, expecting a blackmail attempt, a scandalous headline, or a phone call. But nothing came. The chilling silence was more terrifying than any overt threat. It hung in the air like an invisible chain, forcing her to navigate her days and nights with gnawing fear, the weight of exposure pressing on her chest. Despite the danger and fear, Bergman and Peck continued to meet in secret. Each encounter was a mixture of joy and torment, a blend of forbidden love and moral restraint. In the hotel room, they could speak freely, sharing their fears, dreams, and frustrations. Bergman often spoke of her family, the growing distance between her and her husband, Peter Lindstrom, and her inability to reconcile her intense feelings for Peck with her responsibilities. Peck listened without judgment, offering empathy and understanding. His presence was both comforting and intoxicating. Even the simplest gestures, holding her hand, offering a reassuring smile, or leaving a small bouquet of white lilies, carried immense significance. Bergman's letters later revealed that these small acts became lifelines, moments that reminded her of the intense human connection she craved, even as they deepened her sense of guilt. Each meeting left her torn, exhilarated by the passion and intimacy she experienced, yet weighed down by the knowledge that these moments were temporary, fragile, and could never be made permanent. It was during this period that Bergman fully realized the complexity of her emotions. She understood that the love she felt for Peck was different from any other in her life. It was not just attraction. It was recognition, a sense of being understood on a level that transcended words or appearances. Her marriage to Lindstrom, once a source of comfort and stability, had become cold, distant, and emotionally inadequate. Yet leaving it completely was not a simple choice. She had a daughter, Pia, and the responsibilities of a family to consider. The forbidden nature of her love with Peck made each encounter both magical and devastating. Every kiss, every shared look, carried an intensity that burned in memory long after moments ended. Even as she returned home, Bergman felt an ache, a longing, and a guilt that made her nights restless. This duality, a profound joy and deep remorse, became a defining characteristic of her life during the filming of Spellbound. In the eyes of the public, she remained the untouchable goddess of Hollywood. In private, however, she was a woman navigating the treacherous terrain of forbidden passion, where every choice carried consequences that could alter the course of her life forever. As the secret affair between Ingrid Bergman and Gregory Peck continued, the intensity of their emotions only grew stronger. Every glance, every accidental touch, and every brief moment spent together became infused with meaning. The couple had mastered the art of secrecy, meeting in dimly lit hotel rooms, exchanging short notes, and cherishing the rare moments when they could truly connect. Each encounter carried a mix of exhilaration and fear. Bergman's heart was fully alive, awakened by the passion and tenderness she shared with Peck, yet weighed down by a gnawing sense of guilt. Every morning when she returned home to Peter Lindstrom and their daughter, Pia, the contrast between the warmth of her secret meetings and the cold reality of her domestic life was impossible to ignore. She began to question herself, asking whether it was possible to reconcile love with duty, desire with responsibility. The answers were never simple. Hollywood, with its bright lights and prying eyes, loomed over her, amplifying the fear that her private life could be exposed at any moment. One day, the reality of this fear arrived in the form of a shocking discovery. Bergman returned home after a long day on set to find a large packet of mail on her table, tied neatly with a red string. Inside were dozens of photographs, capturing her and Gregory Peck in moments they had thought private. A cafe in Beverly Hills, a car parked beneath faint streetlights, and even glimpses of the hotel corridor where they had met in secret. The accompanying note read simply, "Hollywood always has eyes." Bergman froze, her hands trembling as she tried to absorb the meaning. Someone had been watching, documenting their every step. Who was it, and what was their intention? The fear of exposure was immediate and suffocating. For the next several days, she obsessively checked her phone, mail, and newspapers, expecting an imminent scandal or blackmail attempt. The silence that followed, however, was almost more terrifying than any direct threat. It hung over her like a dark cloud, creating a sense of helplessness and forcing her to confront the moral and emotional consequences of her choices. The combination of passion and fear made her life a delicate balancing act, where one misstep could destroy everything she held dear. Despite these challenges, the clandestine affair persisted. Ingrid Bergman and Gregory Peck found solace in the quiet moments they shared, away from the cameras and the world's judgment. Their meetings were intensely private, allowing them to speak freely about fears, frustrations, and desires that could never be expressed elsewhere. Bergman often confided in Peck about the emptiness she felt within her marriage, the distance between her and Lindstrom, and the difficulty of balancing her career with her personal life. Peck's responses were always calm, understanding, and supportive. He did not offer judgment or criticism, only empathy and a deep emotional connection. These moments became lifelines for Bergman, providing her with the emotional support and intimacy she had been missing for years. Even the smallest gestures, like a bouquet of white lilies or a carefully chosen note, carried immense weight, symbolizing care, recognition, and a fleeting sense of security in a world where her desires could not be openly expressed. The intensity of their secret love was heightened by the very nature of its impossibility. Bergman's life was divided between two worlds: the reality of her home with Lindstrom and Pia, and the emotional, passionate realm she shared with Peck. Each world demanded different aspects of her heart, yet neither could be ignored. When she returned home after their meetings, the contrast between warmth and coldness became unbearable. She would sit alone in her room, staring out the window at the Los Angeles night, contemplating the choices she had made and the ones she could not yet make. The fear of discovery, combined with the intensity of her feelings, created a psychological pressure that weighed heavily on her. Every glance, every whisper, every touch with Peck carried the risk of scandal, yet simultaneously fulfilled a deep, essential part of her being. This duality, the interplay between desire and duty, love and guilt, became the defining characteristic of her life during this period. It was a delicate dance on the edge of morality, one that required constant vigilance and emotional restraint. Even as the affair deepened, Bergman remained acutely aware of the consequences. She knew that Hollywood's eyes were always watching, and that any hint of scandal could ruin her career and personal life. The photographs that appeared on her doorstep were a stark reminder of this reality. Yet, despite the fear and tension, her connection with Gregory Peck was impossible to ignore or suppress. It was a love that transcended circumstance, a bond formed not just through physical attraction, but through emotional understanding, shared vulnerability, and mutual respect. Each encounter was a mixture of joy, longing, and sorrow, a brief escape from the pressures of fame and the expectations placed upon her. In these moments, Bergman was not a star or a public icon. She was simply a woman experiencing the full intensity of human emotion, and it was this secret, forbidden love that would remain etched in her heart for the rest of her life as the months passed. The secret romance between Ingrid Bergman and Gregory Peck reached an emotional peak, filled with intensity, longing, and moments of unbearable tension. While the cameras on the set of Spellbound captured a scripted romance, behind the scenes, the chemistry between them was undeniable and far more complicated than any movie could portray. Bergman's inner conflict deepened with each encounter. She was caught between the love and passion she felt for Peck and the life she had already built with her husband Peter Lindstrom and their daughter Pia. Every time she returned home from a meeting with Peck, the warmth and excitement of their secret exchanges contrasted sharply with the cold reality of her domestic life. Bergman described in her private notes a constant oscillation between guilt and desire, duty and temptation. She knew what was morally expected of her, yet her heart longed for Peck's presence, his understanding, and the rare emotional intimacy he provided. Each stolen moment became a precious, yet dangerous, fragment of a world she could never fully inhabit. The clandestine meetings at the Bear Hotel became a sanctuary, a place where the pressures of Hollywood, the judgment of the public, and the constraints of morality did not exist. In those dimly lit rooms, Bergman and Peck could be themselves, vulnerable, emotional, and free to explore the depth of their feelings without restraint. Bergman often recounted that in these private encounters, she could finally express the emotions she had suppressed for years: fear, longing, and the intense desire to be truly understood. Peck, careful and empathetic, never pressured her, but provided a sense of calm and honesty that was completely absent from her home life. Simple gestures, a brief touch of the hand, a soft glance, a small bouquet of white lilies, were loaded with significance, each carrying messages of affection, care, and reassurance. These moments, although fleeting, were etched into Bergman's memory, creating an emotional intensity that will remain with her long after the affair ended. The stakes of their secret love grew higher when Bergman discovered mysterious photographs left at her home. These images, showing her and Peck in what they believed were private moments, were accompanied by a chilling note: "Hollywood always has eyes." Fear gripped Bergman. The photos made the private affair suddenly feel fragile and exposed, and she knew that one misstep could ruin her reputation and career. Yet, paradoxically, this threat heightened the intensity of their connection. The secret nature of their romance, combined with the risk of discovery, made every meeting more meaningful and every shared moment more electrifying. Bergman's internal struggle was profound. She had to balance the exhilaration of her love with the fear of judgment, the thrill of passion with the weight of societal expectations. Hollywood was a world obsessed with appearances, and she knew that if the truth of her feelings for Peck were revealed, it would create a scandal that could never be undone. Despite the danger, Bergman and Peck continued to see each other in secret. Each meeting was carefully planned and intensely emotional. Bergman's letters reveal her constant inner turmoil, describing the mixture of joy, excitement, guilt, and fear that accompanied every encounter. Peck, too, was fully aware of the consequences, yet he could not suppress his feelings. Their love was not born from recklessness or whim. It was an emotional connection that transcended circumstance, built on understanding, mutual respect, and shared vulnerability. In those stolen moments, Bergman experienced a depth of intimacy and connection she had never known before. It was both intoxicating and terrifying, a combination of emotional release and moral conflict. Every touch, every glance, and every whispered word became an indelible part of her life, leaving her both exhilarated and emotionally drained. Yet even as the love between them flourished in secrecy, Bergman understood that it could not last forever. The very intensity of their connection, the forbidden nature of their meetings, and the impossibility of reconciling this love with her responsibilities meant that a turning point was inevitable. Each day carried the weight of an impending decision: to continue risking everything for a love that could never be public, or to step back and preserve what remained of her family and public image. This tension created a psychological and emotional pressure unlike anything she had experienced before. The affair, while passionate and life-affirming, demanded sacrifices and moral reckonings that left Bergman exhausted yet strangely alive. In private, she wrestled with these dilemmas, often writing in her personal notes about the guilt she felt and the longing she could not deny. Every secret meeting, every whispered conversation, every fleeting touch brought both exhilaration and despair. It was a love defined by extremes: extraordinary intensity, dangerous secrecy, an impossible balance of heart and duty. Despite the passionate intensity of her love for Gregory Peck, Ingrid Bergman knew deep down that their affair could not last. The exhilaration of their secret meetings was tempered by the weight of her conscience and the responsibilities she had toward her family. Each encounter, each stolen kiss, and every handwritten note carried with it the looming possibility of scandal, public humiliation, and the moral cost of betraying her husband, Peter Lindstrom. The photographs left at her home served as a stark reminder that nothing in Hollywood remained truly private. Bergman's life was under constant scrutiny, and even the shadows of secrecy could be exposed at any moment. Yet, in the quiet moments of the night, when the world seemed to vanish, she could not deny the overwhelming love and connection she felt with Peck. These secret meetings had become lifelines, moments when she felt truly seen, understood, and alive. The tension between desire and duty, between passion and morality, grew unbearable, creating a psychological storm that Bergman navigated with both fear and courage. One rainy evening, after a long day of filming, Bergman and Peck met at their usual secret location, a quiet room in the Bear Hotel. The rain poured heavily outside, and the dim lighting inside created an intimate, almost cinematic atmosphere. For a while, they simply sat across from each other in silence, the air thick with unspoken emotion. Peck reached out, gently holding Bergman's hands, and she felt the warmth and intensity of his presence, a sensation that made her heart race while simultaneously stabbing her with guilt. Words were unnecessary. Their eyes communicated what their lips could not. But finally, Bergman spoke, her voice trembling. "Gregory, we cannot keep doing this. This is a dream we cannot live in forever." Peck's face reflected a mix of sorrow and understanding. Yet he held on to her hands, as if refusing to let go of connection that had consumed them both. It was in this moment that Bergman fully realized the impossible nature of their love. It was beautiful, passionate, and profoundly human, yet doomed by circumstance. Their affair, intense as it was, had to end, not because their love had faded, but because reality demanded it. Bergman returned home that night with a heavy heart, carrying both the joy and anguish of their final encounter. Her domestic life, once familiar, now felt alien and cold. She observed her daughter Pia sleeping and her husband Peter Lindstrom's distant, composed presence, and she felt a profound sense of isolation. Love, she realized, could not always be reconciled with duty, and passion could not exist without consequences. In her private notes, Bergman later described this period as one of profound emotional conflict, a time when every choice was fraught with both exhilaration and moral weight. She reflected on the intensity of her feelings for Peck, acknowledging that, while their love had been genuine, it was also unsustainable. She understood that to continue would risk destroying not only her life, but the lives of those she cared for most. The realization was painful, yet it was also liberating. By ending the affair, she reclaimed control over her life, her choices, and her future. Years later, Ingrid Bergman's private letter, written shortly after the end of the affair, would reveal the full depth of her emotions. In it, she confessed the love, desire, and guilt she experienced during those secret meetings. She wrote about the intensity of her connection with Peck, the exhilaration of their stolen moments, and the torment of knowing their love could never exist in the light of day. The letter was a raw, emotional testament to the human heart's complexity, a blend of longing, remorse, and honesty that illuminated a side of Bergman the world had never seen. When Gregory Peck eventually read the letter decades later, he was moved to tears. The emotions that had been buried for years, the joy, the heartbreak, and the intensity of their love, surfaced again, proving that some connections, even when ended, never truly fade. Hollywood may have forgotten or misunderstood the private life of its stars, but in those pages, Bergman's heart was laid bare, immortalized in words that revealed both her humanity and the extraordinary depth of her capacity to love. After the secret romance with Gregory Peck ended, Ingrid Bergman returned to the life she had built with her first husband, Peter Lindstrom. But the void left by the intensity of her affair lingered. The marriage, already strained by distance and differing priorities, now felt even more distant. Lindstrom remained a stable, composed presence, devoted to his medical practice, but he could not bridge the emotional gap that had grown between them. Bergman, meanwhile, found herself drawn ever more deeply into the world of cinema, traveling constantly for shoots, immersing herself in complex roles, and exploring the artistic opportunities Hollywood offered. While she maintained a facade of a devoted wife and mother, her heart often yearned for passion, excitement, and emotional depth, qualities she had briefly found with Peck. Over time, the physical and emotional distance in her marriage widened. By 1950, after years of tension, miscommunication, and unfulfilled desires, Bergman and Lindstrom formally divorced. It was not a scandalous end, but a quiet, inevitable separation, driven by the realization that love, as they had once imagined it, had faded. The dissolution of her first marriage marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, one that would be far more dramatic, public, and transformative. Soon after her divorce, Bergman's path crossed with Roberto Rossellini, the brilliant Italian director whose revolutionary vision of cinema would leave a permanent mark on the film world. Their meeting ignited a powerful, almost combustible connection. Unlike her previous relationships, the love she shared with Rossellini was passionate, immediate, and public, despite both being married at the time. Bergman's career in Hollywood and Rossellini's in Italy collided with the force of fate, producing both extraordinary artistic collaboration and unprecedented scandal. When the news of Bergman's pregnancy with Rossellini's child broke, America reacted with shock and harsh criticism. The pure, flawless image of the Swedish starlet was shattered in the public eye. She became, overnight, a controversial figure, denounced by the press and shunned by Hollywood elite. For Bergman, this period was one of intense personal upheaval. She had found love and creative partnership, yet the price was exile from the country that had made her famous. She relocated to Europe with Rossellini, where the couple produced some of the most groundbreaking works of Italian neorealism, including Stromboli 1950 and Journey to Italy 1954. These films explored human emotion, moral complexity, and the authenticity of life itself, reflecting the tumultuous love that had inspired them. Bergman, far from being a passive participant, thrived as an artist, bringing emotional depth, vulnerability, and intelligence to roles that challenged traditional cinematic norms. The love between Bergman and Rossellini, intense and all-consuming, eventually proved unsustainable. Rossellini, a genius with strong creative vision, was also controlling and demanding, leaving little room for Bergman's independence. Their once fiery romance cooled, replaced by tension and conflict. By 1957, after years of collaboration, artistic exploration, and shared family life, their marriage collapsed. Bergman's experience with Rossellini taught her the complexities of love at the intersection of passion, intellect, and public scrutiny. Their children, Roberto Jr., Isabella, and Isata, remained a lasting bond of the relationship. Yet the intense romance that had defined Bergman's life in Europe had ended, leaving her to navigate the aftermath of both personal heartbreak and professional brilliance. After her time with Rossellini, Bergman found solace in a quieter, more stable relationship with Lars Schmidt, a Swedish theater producer. Schmidt was a stark contrast to her previous lovers. Neither a controlling genius nor a symbol of distant stability, he offered companionship, understanding, and subtle support. Their relationship, though not as dramatically passionate as her affair with Peck or her marriage to Rossellini, was marked by mutual respect and genuine affection. Schmidt was present for Bergman through her later struggles, including health challenges, career pressures, and personal grief. While their marriage ended in divorce in 1975, the separation was amicable and the bond of friendship persisted. Schmidt's presence during Bergman's final years offered a quiet, dependable support system, proving that love could exist not only in passion and scandal, but also in patience, understanding, and companionship. Throughout these decades of personal and professional transformation, Ingrid Bergman navigated love, scandal, and career with a rare blend of courage and authenticity. Her relationships reflected the complexity of a life lived fully, the intensity of secret romance, the passion of artistic collaboration, and the steadiness of companionship. Each chapter of love, from Lindstrom to Rossellini to Schmidt, revealed a woman unwilling to compromise her heart, intellect, or artistic vision. She embraced both joy and pain, understanding that life, like her films, demanded emotional honesty and courage. Her personal journey, intertwined with her career, became a testament to the human capacity to love, to endure, and to seek fulfillment, even amid societal judgment and personal risk. Bergman's story was far more than Hollywood glamour. It was a narrative of resilience, complexity, and the pursuit of truth in both art and life. Ingrid Bergman's later years were a mixture of reflection, quiet companionship, and the lingering echoes of a life lived intensely. After the dramatic chapters of her early career and emotional turbulence of her loves with Gregory Peck and Roberto Rossellini, she entered a period marked by introspection and resilience. Though she continued to act, taking on roles that showcase her immense talent and versatility, the public perception of her had softened. The scandals that had once defined headlines, her exile from Hollywood, her affair with Rossellini, had gradually faded into the background, allowing Bergman's artistry and humanity to shine more prominently. Her time with Lars Schmidt, though not passionate in the way her earlier loves had been, provided stability and understanding. Schmidt supported Bergman through health challenges and personal difficulties, offering a quiet companionship that became essential in her later life. In this period, Bergman focused not only on her career, but also on nurturing her family, remaining deeply connected to her children and fostering a sense of love, guidance, and care. Despite the calm that seemed to surround her life, Bergman never lost a capacity for deep emotion. She often reflected privately on her past loves, particularly her affair with Gregory Peck, which remained a source of profound emotional resonance. Decades after their brief but intense connection, Bergman penned a private letter detailing her experiences, emotions, and the conflicting feelings of desire and guilt that had accompanied their relationship. In the letter, she wrote candidly about the exhilaration of their stolen moments, the moral dilemmas she faced, and the emotional awakening that Peck had brought into her life. It was a rare, unguarded glimpse into the inner workings of a woman who had, to the world, seemed perfect, composed, and untouchable. The letter, though private for many years, revealed the depth of Bergman's humanity, her capacity for love, regret, and reflection, and provided a poignant reminder that even the most admired public figures grapple with complexities of emotion and morality. A.S. Bergman's health began to decline in the early 1980s. She faced the final chapter of her life with the same grace and courage that had defined her career. Diagnosed with cancer, she confronted the disease quietly, preferring to spend her remaining time surrounded by loved ones rather than in the glare of public attention. On her 67th birthday, August 29, 1982, she drew her last breath in a small London residence, accompanied by those closest to her, her former husband Lars Schmidt, her daughter Isabella Rossellini, and 2 lifelong friends. Even in her final moments, Bergman retained the dignity and calm that had become hallmarks of her persona. Friends later recounted that she smiled weakly but radiantly as the day progressed, as if acknowledging that life, with all its joys, sorrows, and complexities, had been a story well told. Her passing marked the end of an extraordinary life, one characterized by artistic brilliance, passionate loves, personal courage, and a relentless pursuit of authenticity. In the years following her death, Bergman's private letter to Gregory Peck was made public, offering the world a deeper understanding of her inner life. Peck, then in his 70s, read the letter quietly in his California study. Tears fell onto the pages as he absorbed her words, describing the intensity of their connection, the fear of exposure, and the emotional turmoil she had experienced. When I looked into his eyes, I forgot everything else. That scared me more than anything, she had written. Peck later confirmed that the letter had rekindled the emotions of a love that had been buried for decades, a reminder that human connection, once formed, can endure long after circumstances have changed. This letter became a defining piece of Bergman's legacy, not for scandal, but for its honesty, emotional depth, and testament to the complexity of love. It reminded the world